Bruce, I forgive you for not saving me. But why? Why on God's earth is he still alive? If it had been you that he'd beat to a bloody pulp, if he had taken you from this world, I would have done nothing but search the planet for this pathetic pile of evil death-worshipping garbage and send him off to hell.
You don't understand. I don't think you've ever understood.
What? What, your moral code just won't allow for that? It's too hard to cross that line?
No! God Almighty, no! It'd be too damned easy. All I've ever wanted to do is kill him. A day doesn't go by when I don't think about subjecting him to every horrendous torture he's dealt out to others, and then end him.
Aw, so you do think about me.
But if I do that, if I allow myself to go down into that place, I'll never come back.
What's going on? My name is Doku D, and that was a clip from Batman Under the Red Hood. And if you know anything about the Red Hood or Batman, you know the conflict I just showed you stems from Batman's no-kill rule. Now, this rule exists for a few reasons, according to Batman anyway. Number one, because killing someone despite what they've done will transform you into something no better than they were, compromising your own humanity or moral compass. And number two, because killing someone removes their chance for redemption, and everybody has the potential to change for the better, so they ought to get that chance. As you can probably guess, based off the title and thumbnail, I don't agree with this rule. I think unaliving someone who is actively unaliving people, who has unalived people, does not make you equal to them. It doesn't even make you adjacent to them. The fact of the matter is, they took away lives of the innocent, people who had not encroached on another person's life. And you took the life of the person who took the lives of the innocent, removing their ability to ever do harm again, permanently. Pretending like those two things have the same emotional weight and thus can both transform you into a monster, I think is just dishonest. Secondly, I think giving someone a chance to redeem themselves is far less important than protecting those who need no redemption in the first place. I think the goal of humanity should be to minimize the harm we cause as much as possible within reason, and someone who's killed unjustifiably or for their own gain and pleasure is likely to continue. And I say, why give them that chance? Why allow them a chance to ever hurt anyone else who's done nothing to deserve it? If it's not fair to give everyone a second chance at life, is it not doubly unfair to allow someone else's first chance to be violated, especially when you consider the fact that they already took someone's first chance, many someone's? I think it's a self-gratifying and privileged stance to take. Hell, even looking at the fictional movie example that I just showed, Batman essentially says to Jason he doesn't take the Joker's life because of what it could potentially do to him and how it would affect him, Batman. That's the bet Batman is not willing to take, but he will bet that leaving the Joker alive ultimately will lead to better outcomes. The ideology is absolutely self-serving, at least in this example. And I believe that same ideology in the real world comes from the idea that human life, despite what the consciousness attached to it does, has an inherent value that we for some arbitrary reason can never decide for ourselves to take, no matter the circumstances the person attached to the life creates. And you'll find people who subscribe to this ideology often being okay with giving it up to what they perceive to be a higher authority, like the judicial system or a set of rules and guidelines and punishments from a religious textbook, but never the consensus of people that may be oppressed, like say Donald Trump and the people he would oppress, like other Americans who are feeling the weight of the decisions he makes, more importantly the cruelty and the greed of the decisions he makes. But that aside, I can see how someone could be uncomfortable with the consensus of an uninformed people, of a people who don't know what they're talking about. But when we're talking about Donald Trump, the things he does that are bad are very much on display for everybody to see and feel the effects of. So forgive me when I don't care when that consensus of people want to see him gone. And we'll talk about that more in just a second. But for now, back to the ideology. So the no-kill rule, or what I'm calling the superhero ideology. I think it's harmful that this idea is perpetuated in media because it can rub off on the real world, resulting in people being protected that shouldn't and people being harmed that have done nothing to deserve it. And actually I have an example of just that, which inspired this video in the first place. I stumbled across a creator on TikTok who argued that people rejoicing in the possible unaliving of Donald Trump, you know, the guy who's actively funding a genocide, you know, the guy who has put ICE in place to tear families apart, which has taken lives, all for some gambit to get you to look away from what he's doing and to get you to believe that the Brown family who immigrated here down the street is the cause of your struggle. Yeah, that Donald Trump. He argues rejoicing in that can become dangerous. So let's take a look.
Miss Miller.
Be respectful.
I'm sorry.
1.3 million likes and 26,000 comments, most of which are reinstating and agreeing with the creator's opinion and that idea. If that is not terrifying to you, I don't know what is. It has become terrifyingly normalized for individuals to believe that they hold the moral an ethical authority to determine who has the right to life and who deserves to die. We've seen it overwhelmingly with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and it is absurd how many people then mocked him and celebrated his death. And when you call them out for it, when you mention this kind of stuff, people automatically assume that you must be a supporter, that you must be a MAGA, you must be a conservative. And they never once consider this idea that you can have basic human empathy and value for another person's life without supporting or being a part of their ideology.
So I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that someone who could empathize for the loss of life of a bad person subscribes to their ideology. Actually, I think it's a mix between three things. So it's either A, you do identify with their ideology, and so that's why you empathize. B, you're ignorant to what their ideology was and don't understand the impact it can or did cause to people it sought to oppress. Or C, the ideology they had did not affect you, so you fail to understand how it affects others. Like B and C can be true, maybe A and B can be true, but what I definitely don't assume is that it's a result of basic human empathy. Because why are you empathizing with the oppressor, with someone who is incapable of empathizing themselves? Why are we empathizing with someone who would rob the subjective experience from millions of people, all for monetary or political gain? Why? It's a absolute waste of empathy. Your empathy could be better spent in places where innocent people are actually being victimized. But you want us to sit in kumbaya and worry about what happened to Charlie Kirk or empathize with Donald Trump if he so got, killed? Why? Donald Trump is responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people. He is actively funding a war, right? He has done weird, shady to take money from the American people, continues to do so. He is racist, he is transphobic, he is homophobic. He wishes to remove support systems that support trans people, that support LGBTQ people, and yet you want us to empathize with someone who can't empathize for shit? Why? It doesn't make any fucking sense. No, people can't have empathy for people if they can't give that shit back. No, we can't. Especially when the people who he's attacking have done nothing wrong to him. The science is not on it. There is no justification for why he does what he does other than it's for his own gain, satisfaction, to get him to a place where he wants to be, to envision the world in the way he wants to see it. It doesn't take into consideration the well-being of people. So why the fuck would we empathize? And the same thing goes for Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk said several racist things. He said if there's a black pilot that he can't trust him. He said black people were better off before the civil rights movement. Like, he said horrible, reprehensible shit about people that look like you. He has given people who think like him a space to feel accepted and heard and shit and justified. And so this constant cycle of bigotry continues. He perpetuated that. Hell, Charlie Kirk died by the very thing he supported. That sometimes gun violence needs to happen so that we can have our guns, and it happened to him. And yet you want us to be sad when somebody who all they do is spend their life spreading hate, or in Donald Trump's case, literally causing death and hate across the world? You want us to be sad when they're gone. You want us to feel like we need to be reprimanded because we feel a way about someone who has caused the deaths of millions of people. You want us to be like, well, no, he got human life. I don't give a fuck about his human life because his human life is trash. So what I think you're operating off of is blind human empathy. You're just giving people empathy for the virtue that they're human beings. And to tell you the truth, I think it comes from some place of social conditioning. Think about media, like I showed in the beginning, like Batman, where it often comes up that he has to talk about and re-clarify his no killing rule. It's a defining factor of Batman. Same thing for Spider-Man. Same thing for a lot of different heroes. Superman, like, there are times where they refuse to take human life for virtue of it being human life. Even in religion, you can never take another life no matter what the circumstance. Give it up to the system. Like, it's always give it to the systems, the same systems that niggas like Trump know how to abuse and get around shit. Like, I don't know, but we're gonna let the video play.
And we self-righteously extend these one-dimensional judgments to multi-dimensional and layered human beings, disregarding the complexity of it all. Former Vice President Kamala Harris made a really good point about this that everybody laughed about her for, but it was actually quite profound. She said that we exist within the concept of everything that was before us, something like that, which is to say that people are complex and we're shaped by different factors, both our past and present experiences. So when you extend these one-dimensional judgments, you are disregarding the depth and complexity, which is being human. You're disregarding this idea that someone can reasonably and rationally believe in a different worldview other than your own, given the circumstances they grew up in.
So this is kind of interesting because he's trying to relate what I believe to be true is that nobody has free will. That nobody really makes any choice ever, because you don't get to decide where you're born. You don't get to decide your own brain chemistry. You don't get to decide the influences that happen to your life. You don't really get to decide anything. Like the culmination of your preferences and all that shit comes from somewhere. Everything about you as a person comes from something, somewhere. Whether it be the way your brain was predispositioned to grow and it was wired, or the shit around you. You get what I'm trying to say. He's trying to say that to say, well, when you make these self-righteous judgments, you disregard the fact that they don't really have a choice. That shit doesn't matter to other human beings. Like, this is why when I'm talking religion, I often grant free will when I'm talking about religion with people, because we can go back and forth all day about how nothing fucking matters and nothing is good, nothing is evil in the grand scheme of things. We're just floating on a rock and all this shit, all this arbitrary shit we give meaning. Nothing actually fucking matters because we never get to choose anything. There's no everything is sort of in a way predetermined. But in a conversation between two beings that exist in a system which we can either benefit from or be harmed from, like, I don't give a fuck. This is for a conversation for two godly niggas to have for some shit. This isn't like something to consider when we're talking about how we deal with bad actors and people. For the sake of a functioning society and like for consequences to be a thing, for rewards to be any fucking thing, we have to grant free will to some extent. Now, if you want to have this existential shit, you do that with a godly being or some shit. I don't know. But that's not for like a conversation about morals, because morals are subjective. So when we start talking about objectivity and how nothing fucking matters now, you don't really get to choose. It just, everything starts to not matter and we get off the subject. But so to take it back, I reject that whole notion completely and entirely, because now the shit you care about doesn't matter. The shit I care about doesn't matter. The shit we both nothing matters if we start to think about the uncontrollable elements and the way that free will does it. Like, nothing we can't even have a conversation anymore. So I just reject that shit altogether. It's irrelevant when we're talking about subjective things, especially because for you to have even made this video, you would already be conceding or granting several subjective things to matter to you. So it's clear that you don't actually believe nothing upon nothing upon nothing upon nothing matters. Because in the same way you ask people to consider the way that people don't necessarily make choices, you still ask them to make a choice on how they feel about Trump, which is like, it doesn't make any sense. You can't say, well, you ignore the three-dimensional things and everything and the environment in which people are cultivated, now they don't make choices, and then ask people to then make a choice even though they've come to be this way based off their environment, the same way Trump has. So we just get to talking about nothing. But I'm not going to repeat myself again. Let the video play.
I'm not saying you to sympathize with everybody either, but what I am saying is that it is extraordinarily dangerous to get used to dehumanizing people. It is extraordinarily dangerous to normalize determining or believing that you have the ability to determine who deserves life and death. If you know anything about history, you'll know that's how sides start. The Holocaust didn't start with history just coming out of nowhere, coming out the blue and saying, let's kill every Jew. That's not what happened. What happened was that it was a slow sequence of propaganda that dehumanized Jewish people to the point where the people that were extremely devoted to his cause, to his idea, went so far as to start actually murdering people, as to start killing people by the masses. That's how that happens. It gets you to the point where you no longer see this individual that you disagree with ideologically or whatever as no longer human, as no longer on the same plane or space an equal value as you, which allows you to see them as an animal. And animals, we hunt animals, we kill animals without regard. And that's the dangerous part. When you dehumanize people, when you demoralize someone, when you look at them and say that they are on a lower scale than you are, first of all, that's extraordinarily arrogant. But secondarily, it makes it that much easier to justify killing them. Go ahead, say Trump's a terrible president, say he shouldn't be in office, blah, 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 whatever. But once you cross that line of being elated at the idea of him dying, that's when you yourself cross into the territory of evil.
As far as your claim that it's dangerous to get used to dehumanizing people, I would agree if we weren't talking about someone who, for a career, dehumanizes people. Why would I humanize someone who has little to no regard for human life themselves? Or its condition. He's not a fucking empathetic person. So why would I extend him that graciousness? Why? It makes no fucking sense to me. It's like you open up by saying, I'm not telling you to sympathize with everybody, and then you follow, well, you should sympathize with everybody or empathize with everybody. No, not everybody deserves that by virtue of being a human being. I think it's vastly more dangerous to try to humanize someone who's actively committing crimes upon humanity, all for a gain. I think it's dangerous because it creates docile people who never want to do anything, who never want to act anything out, because we're always, well, he's human too, well, he has a family. Fuck all that, dude. I think it's dangerous because the whole time you're trying to extend empathy to Donald Trump, people suffer under him so that he can gain something from it. This is why I say this is such a privileged position to have. Could you legitimately look in the eyes of someone who is currently caught in this war, who's suffering, who's lost family members, and tell them, well, we would never want to do anything to Donald Trump, or if Donald Trump died, I mean, we would all get around and cry and be sad, even though he's responsible for the deaths of your loved ones. All for what? Why is he responsible? Because he has something to gain from it. Why the fuck would we extend that graciousness to Trump? Why? It makes no sense. And you predicate this entirely off of him being a human fucking being. What about the other human beings? What about the other people who stand to gain from the loss of life of Trump? Because there's a lot of people who stand to gain, i.e. the video you reacted to. What about those people who are actively being crushed by this man, and he's crushing them for what? For himself. So for your point of this is how starts. It doesn't make any sense because we're talking about a singular individual, but even if you want to extend this out to MAGA, that's fine, we can go there. The difference is, though, the way he felt against Jews and the people he convinced to also hate the Jews was irrational. We live in the information age. Anything you see, anything that Trump does is available to see for the most part, right? All the horrible shit we know about him is available for anybody to look up and see and research and learn and understand, right? There's no gap of information or context that's going to make what Trump has been doing okay. Neither does it make it okay for MAGA to continue to prop up someone who does all this horrible shit. So the difference is that one was completely irrational and founded off lies. It was about their ethnicity, their religion, and their nationality and beliefs and all that shit. Beliefs that don't result in the violation of rights of other human beings. Now, when talking about MAGA quite literally believes that we should take the ability of gender-affirming care from trans people, effectively them off. MAGA believes that the war that's going on right now is justified. MAGA blindly supports whatever Donald Trump does. And what Donald Trump does is horrible, greedy, capitalistic, inhumane shit. So personally, I hold no issue with wanting these people gone the fuck off of Earth. It's just that simple. You even entertaining the notion that it's arrogant to think that we have the higher moral standard says a whole lot about you and your basic human empathy. I think in reality, you just have an inclination towards authority, and you're the type to believe that every side has a point. Not every side has a point here. The left puts people's lives, their experiences, and the human condition first, while the right does not do that shit. The right believes in old values, which a lot of the time are just white supremacy and racism. The right believes in personal individual success, and so as long as you're doing okay, it doesn't matter that other people are starving. The right is conservative and they conserve. They're antithetical to progression, and progression is what we need if we're ever to reach better conditions. And that's conditions for everybody, not just people who have the capital and the privilege to afford it in the first place. So to wrap this up, because this video is entirely too long, I believe it's more dangerous to give value to the human life for virtue of it being human life. It should be about the subjective experience of life. And if that subjective experience is enveloped in hatred, is enveloped in racism, bigotry, which causes you to disregard the lives of people overseas, the people who live in the same country as you, who are homeless, starving. If that subjective experience makes you think that you're elite and because of your privileges you deserve to be where you're at, and everybody else should just pick themselves up by their bootstraps despite the fact that it's in an unfair system, I have no problem dehumanizing you, and I would do that shit every day of the week. It is far more dangerous to be someone who's constantly trying to empathize with every person, no matter what damage they do, giving them second chances, no matter how many chances away, no matter how many chances they've taken from other people. That is the actual fucking danger. And you can say, well, Trump's term is going to end sometime or whatever the fucking case may be, but that shit doesn't happen until 2029. And myself and a lot of other people wish that shit would end as soon as possible. And whatever that means to you is whatever it means to you. But I have no qualms about feeling that way, and neither should you. But with that, that's kind of to do with the video. I appreciate you watching all the way up until this point. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, hype the video if you're on mobile, and do all those wonderful things. I really appreciate it. It goes a long way. It helps me be able to do this more consistently. And if you want to take an extra mile, I do have a membership starting at $1. Anything is appreciated. So I just appreciate y'all for all your support. We're almost at 5K, and I can do nothing but say thank you. So thank you. And I'm gonna have to see y'all niggas later. Peace.